Welcome to Coffee with the Preacher. Here the coffee is hot, conversations are flavorful, and stories about God's faithfulness inspire us all. Go grab your favorite mug, prepare your coffee and your heart, and join us as we sit down with pastors, missionaries, and ministry leaders to share uplifting and powerful testimonies of God's goodness. Together, let's find encouragement, wisdom, and strength for our journey of faith. Let us taste and see that the Lord is good.
Welcome to Coffee with the Preacher. I am Gavino Hernandez.
And I am Bob Mack. It's great to be back with you guys.
Hey, we're so excited to be with you guys again. There's been so much that's going on recently, and the Lord has just been moving in tremendous ways. Our church is growing down here in Mexico, and Bobby's now off for school vacation, and we're now on summertime, and now kind of getting into the vacation time. I have some conferences coming up here soon, but we need to get back to the podcasting, brother, and so praise the Lord that we had some time that we can jump in and see each other and talk.
Well, absolutely. I had the tremendous privilege of being up in your neck of the woods here recently, and Pastor Shepard really graciously allowed me to come in and speak. He let me speak Sunday morning and Sunday evening, so evidently he and the church is a glutton for punishment, so they heard me twice on the same day. But I found out you got a lot of fans up there, bro. Like
I do.
You're a big shot.
I didn't think people in Ohio liked Mexicans that well, but I guess Cornerstone likes Mexicans. No, I'm just messing. My church is our sending church is just a loving church, and it's a decent sized church, and the Lord brought us in. I don't know if we've ever presented this here on Coffee with the Preacher, but when I arrived in 2017 to Cornerstone, I didn't arrive. Basically, I arrived and didn't know anybody. I didn't know Pastor Shepard. I knew of your uncle, Matt Marshall, that was an assistant pastor there for 10 years. I knew of him, didn't know him personally. And the Lord just opened up doors for us to serve. Within 3.5 months of us being at Cornerstone, we took over the junior church. And then about 2.5 years later, took in an associate role there. And I worked side by side with Pastor Shepard. And so, yeah, I love our church dearly. Definitely bittersweet moment when we came down to Mexico. But
Yeah.
Cornerstone's always going to be a sensitive place in my heart, and I was excited to see you be up there, and just because I'm a fan of you, you knocked you knocked it out of the park. We live streamed. My wife and I we're 2 hours behind, so we got to live stream your messages before we went to our service, and praise the Lord, you did a great job, and your dad was there with you too, right, on Sunday morning.
Yeah, he was. Number one, if there's anything good, it's God, brother. I had nothing to do with that. But two, my dad was there, and that was really cool. It's been a while since I've seen them. Obviously, they don't hardly ever get to see Bobby, and I'm glad for them to see their grandson a little bit. My mom gave him this car that you like wind up. It's like a monster truck, so it's all terrain, and so was all over my living room. Like
That's
for
awesome.
weeks was just that, him playing with his grandma's car. So. Yeah, it was good to see them. Some great people. I have memories going back a long ways at Cornerstone. The first time I remember preaching at a supporting church was at Cornerstone, and Uncle Matt had me preach to the youth group while I was there. And this girl came up afterwards and very graciously asked me for my sermon outline. I was like, here you go. Like, I don't know. Like, hopefully it's a blessing. So it's a lot of great memories there. And it was just awesome to be there and to talk. Pastor Shepard obviously is like really gracious and really kind. And it was wonderful to spend some time with him and his family. So yeah, it was awesome. The only thing that was missing was you, brother. That was it.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. I really wanted to. I mean, when I knew you were going up there and I watched that, I really wanted to be there in the service. Pastor Shepard always says there's nothing like actually being a part of the meal. He says you can watch a Thanksgiving meal being prepared on the TV. He says, but it's not like you're actually there enjoying the Thanksgiving meal and actually being a part of that, and smelling everything, and your taste buds and all that different stuff. And it's just like that perspective is what I kind of felt that day. I mean, I'm not saying that we didn't have a great service at our church, but I mean, it's just like I wish I was there, because just the environment and you being there, it was just a very cool thing. I actually texted your uncle that night and was telling him that you did a great job. And
Yeah.
I was talking to him. He goes, "Wow," he's like, "They're all there." I'm like, "Yeah." And so and then we kind of started talking about memories. So there's just some, and I'm not saying this in a bad way. I mean, Cornerstone is still a very, very vibrant church, but there's just some golden nuggets of memories of like in ministry where you have like a, I don't want to say a golden era, but it's just like there's just these times where you just like, man, I remember that when
Mhm.
COVID was happening and we went to go play, what is it called? We were playing volleyball, or we're going out, we're playing what's the other one? Bowling or things like that, or we're, everybody together, and or all these different things that happen. You have these little nuggets of time that you kind
Mhm.
of run back to, and I think you going there kind of sparked something in me, and then Matt and I were talking about it, and it was pretty cool. But I'm glad you enjoyed the time, and like you were saying, like you have some golden nuggets where you go back and you're just like, man, I
Yeah.
remember the first time I was able to share something at a supporting church was
Mhm.
there. And then Pastor Shepherd just kind of opens up those doors on people wanting that be used to be used. I mean, there's a proving time. Not gonna lie, but at the same time, when you get the thumbs up, I mean, it's you get to serve. And so, well, I was very excited to see that, and
Yeah.
you did a great job. The Lord used you tremendously,
Praise the Lord.
to speak to my hearts. I had several text messages afterwards, from people saying that you did a great job, and
God
that
bless you.
if I knew that you were there, and I'm like, yeah, I know he's there.
Give me, hey, you're my brother. Listen, your mom graded me like her long lost son. Okay,
Hey,
so the way
yeah.
she graded me, I might as well be the firstborn.
Hey, it was funny because my mom's like, "Oh, I hugged on Bobby," and she's like, she's like, "He was here, and then I felt like you were here too." And I'm like, "Yeah, but Bobby's better looking than I am. He
Yeah,
probably
but
smells greater, and
that was
he's way more intelligent than I am. I mean,
okay.
let's not compare each other, please."
Yeah, so evidently it's opposite day today. That's fine. I'll run with it.
And so it's just like my mom was all about it, and she's like, "Oh yeah," and I got to see Senior, and he was doing good. He's like, got
Mhm.
to talk to him. And just for those that didn't know, my mom, a few years back, while when she was here, um, I think my mom used your dad's ministry as like during a missions conference in order to decorate the room,
Mhm.
in order to present a missionary and things like that. And my mom used your dad, which was pretty cool because later on you and
Yeah.
I become friends, and it was just kind of it's all those full circle moments that the Lord kind of just allows to happen. We knew of you guys. We didn't have technically a relationship, but praise the Lord, our paths crossed, and we bond, and now we're friends and
Yeah.
brothers for life. And
Los hermanos.
well, today we're gonna touch a little different type of subject that
Hmm.
doesn't really have to do with missions, how we portray it in the States. Sometimes at a local church, this is something that kind of goes unseen, untalked about in a missions conference. Uh, and but it's very practical. You want to open it up to what it
Yeah.
is?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is really like the nuts and bolts of working on a mission field. This is going to be the things, the vast majority of the vast majority of activities and things that happen on a mission field are going to be different than what you think of or see in a missions conference. And that's not deception on the part of the missionary, but like the most important thing you do is the spiritual work in a country. Right. So and when you come to a missions conference, that's what you're showing. These are the people we have a burden for. Here's their culture. Here's how we want to reach them. There's a good missionary.
Mhm.
We'll save that for deputation part 2. But a good missionary is going to understand how he wants to approach that culture. Um, so you have like the works and the conversions and the awesome stories and doors that God has opened. There is so much to life on the mission field outside of that. So you have what we're going to talk about today is medicine, like doctors, like medical crises. How do you approach them? And it's probably something you may have never thought about. And if you're interested in missions, and if you feel like God's tugging on your heart in that direction, this is something that you need to pay attention to. This is very important. A couple of overlapping principles that I'll give, and I'm going to throw it to Gavino. First and foremost, God expects you to be a good steward of yourself and of the resources that He's given you. So you don't earn any heaven points, any spiritual blue ribbons, any badges for being negligent in taking care of yourself and then saying, well, I trust everything to God. Okay. A lack of stewardship is not an increased spirituality. So it's something that we have to keep in mind. So if you're going to the mission field, you have to pay attention to this. One of the reasons why Gavino and I are getting into this particular topic today, as opposed to continuing the deputation series, is we have like active experience in it. Gavino and his family, we've been praying for them significantly over the past couple of weeks. I know that he's a lot. I'll let him get into that. But this is something that's fresh on his heart. This is something that I've gone through personally. My family's gone through on the mission field. So the world of medicine, what does that look like? What's the importance of it? How difficult things can get? And I think you kind of giving your testimony over the past couple months, brother, is going to be probably the best way of setting the stage for why we need to have this conversation.
Okay. So, you know, as Bobby said, the whole nuts and bolts of this is you yes, you talk about the souls, you talk about preaching, you talk about reaching out to people,
As you
but
as you
that
should.
as you should.
Yeah.
But the practical nuts and bolts of it is the studying, it's the reading your Bible consistently, and then also saying, "Hey, I'm struggling in order to develop a message because the Lord's teaching me something, but it's probably I need to apply it a little different to the members than the versus how it's the Lord's applying it to my life." And so that's what we're kind of getting into when it comes down to the nuts and bolts, even on like we said in deputation, where we're going to talk about even the nuts and bolts of that on looking at numbers and things along those lines. So when it comes down to the medical end, the reason why this is so fresh is because my family had a very touchy situation here about 4 weeks ago, almost about a month ago. Uh, we were all ready to go to church. It was about 9:40. Our church service starts at 11, and everybody is getting around Sunday morning. Everybody knows that everybody's running around like chicken with their heads cut off Sunday morning, trying to get ready, trying to maintain a spiritual spirit, and running back and forth, especially a pastor, because he's trying to keep his heart set on, I'm going to preach. I don't want to get mad. I want to keep this message running through my mind. And so there's so many things that are going on. My Just to set the stage for what I'm talking about, my thing is that we put music on. In the morning, Sunday morning, my wife's ironing, getting the girls ready. I literally, my wife's deal is to say this, and I'm not trying to throw myself under the bus, but this is how it usually works, and I know how it works with most pastors. But I don't take care of anything that has to do with the girls. I don't take care with anything that has to do with my wife. I don't take care of anything that has to do with the lunches for the church, the coffee for the church, anything along those lines. My focus is maintaining, thinking and munching on what the Lord is dealing with me and how He's going to use me in the service. Okay. And that's not to wash off my hands. I'm just super hyperactive to where this has to be a calming moment for me to be prepared for service.
Yeah,
Okay?
this is what happens on Sunday morning, not every morning.
Yeah, exactly. Just this is literally particularly just Sunday morning. So music is going. Everybody's kind of, my wife's ironing, getting the last, few clothes ready. The girls, Naya and Aaliyah, are playing around apart from where we are, and Aaliyah, my youngest daughter, is brushing her teeth. And somebody's in the bathroom, and there, I don't know what's going on in basically there, but they had no way to have access to the bathroom, so they're just brushing their teeth, playing around, just moving around, singing to the music, and just goofing off, right? I'm kind of just focusing on going back to my outline every once in a while, going back to the Bible, and kind of looking through that, listening to the music, singing along, and getting my coffee. Literally, that's literally what I'm doing. I'm very hands off on that end. And then I notice that my daughter, my oldest daughter screams. She screams my youngest daughter's name. She says, Aaliyah, Aaliyah. And she says, Dad. And my whole world stops. Right. And I'm like, what just happened? I heard a thud, but I didn't know what happened. Okay. There's so much going on. I'm trying to stay calm. And as I look, I see my daughter running down probably 9 feet of stairs. Um, and I'm like, I'm looking at what was going on. And as I look outside, my daughter is laying at the bottom on over to the side of the stairs. To find out that my daughter was playing around brushing her teeth, and she went to spit what was in her mouth, and where she went to spit the toothpaste out of her mouth, she either steps on a rock, because it's outside, and so there's like rocks where on the step somehow, and she like went to fling it with her foot where her foot got caught, and there wasn't a handrail on the side of on this flight of stairs, and so she falls and her head smacks the concrete at the bottom of the steps. I run downstairs. I thought that she had jumped. So I automatically go into dad mode. Why did you jump? What were you doing? What's going on? I pick her up and she's kind of going in and out. And I'm like, Aaliyah, stop playing around. And I pick her up and Aaliyah. And as I pick her up, I go and I take her into the bedroom. My wife starts to panic at this moment. My oldest daughter's screaming. Aaliyah's going like in and out, and I'm like, okay, just focus right here. What's going on? And my wife, as she goes and she touches my daughter's head as I'm trying to see if my daughter's in and out of consciousness, she's like, her ear is bleeding, and I look at her ear and I'm like, oh no. And then she touches her head and she says she has a huge gooseneck. And I grab her head, and I am not gonna lie, Bobby. The goose egg was probably the big size of my fist. And my daughter's eyes start to roll in her head, and I saw the blood coming out of her ear, and I pick her up and I run towards the car. I said, we're leaving. And my mother-in-law's automatic goes, and she says, what about church? I said, we'll find something. If not, we're canceling church. We're running. I'm running her to the emergency room. And we jump into the car, and we take off. There is about probably about 10 blocks away, roughly. There's a Red Cross station where they park the ambulances, and I was going to go there and see if we could just get her into an ambulance and take her, or have them check her there. And as I'm flying down, there's cars trying to stop me. There's people, honking at me. I'm running red lights. I'm flying. I'm probably doing 60, 70 down these little small roads, and there's nobody at this Red Cross station. And I start to panic at that moment, and we're telling my daughter as we're driving, don't go to sleep, don't fall asleep, keep your eyes open. She's like, what's happened, Daddy? Why are we going so fast, Daddy? And as a father, I'm just trying to get my daughter to safety. I don't know if there's internal bleeding because now it's coming out of her ear. And so I loop around and we start heading towards some place that I have no clue where we're heading. I'm just driving at this point, and I'm like, where is the closest hospital? They have government hospitals, which are socialist hospitals. I'm not taking my daughter there. I don't know what to have, what to do there. And so I'm like, I need to get her to an ambulance. I don't know where the next ambulance station is. So I fly, and I'm flying. I'm running red lights, and then praise the Lord, underneath this overpass is a cop that's just stopped in the section of the city where we're targeting, where we're starting our church. And I pull up right beside him. And I said, hey, and I explained to him, I said, my daughter just fell. She smacked her head. She's bleeding out of her ear. She's in and out of consciousness. I don't know where to go. Where do I head? And he goes, where are you headed? Where do you need to go? He said, the hospital's right here. I said, yes, but I said, we're Americans. I said, we're missionaries, and I'm a pastor. I need to get my daughter to a hospital. I said, I don't need the social hospital. He goes, okay, the Red Cross is right here. He says, follow me. He turns on his lights and sirens, and we fly, man. And I have never driven like that in my life, even when I was a younger teen. And we're flying, and people are just getting out of the way. I just saw God's hand just like moving everybody out of the way, and we're getting there. We fly around. I probably blew out my suspension. My van doesn't run the same now, but I'm trying to get her there. And so we get her to the Red Cross, automatically get her in there. And the cop comes in. He goes, he says, I hope that she's going to be okay. And he says, you said you're a pastor? I said, yes. And he says, well, ask your God in order to help her. And I said, no, I am. I said, but I know my God's going to help her. I said, whatever God wants to do, he's going to do. And it opened up a door in order for me to talk to this cop as they are now taking my daughter in to get her evaluated in with the doctors there at the Red Cross. Well and behold, he stays the whole entire time up
Wow.
until they sent her off to the hospital. And then he just had to make a minor report. And then he says, I know this is a very scary moment, but you're a man of faith. He says, I know that the Lord's going to do something. And at this point now, reflecting back, I told my wife this last night because I'm talking about the podcast today. I said, I really want to find where that cop is and be able to let him know that everything turned out okay. And thank you
That
for his help.
God
Yeah.
spoke through him.
Exactly. And it was a time of encouragement for me through him. And so I want to go back and just be able to sit down and witness to him now on a very, how do I say it? More of a connection now. There's something that bonded us there. And so I want to be able to do that. And so he just stays with us, and he's trying to help out as much as he can. Lo and behold, they said she needs to go to the hospital. She's stable now, but that bleeding out of the ear and that goose egg that she has on her head, she needs to be at the hospital ASAP. And so they asked for the ambulance to come. They charged me $10. Okay, $10 just for the doctors to see them. The ambulance ride was free. And then they took her to the hospital. They asked us which hospital they wanted us they wanted us to take her to, or we wanted them to take her to, and we said, well, we know that the best hospital in the city is such and such, so we're going there. And my mother-in-law on the other end was like, well, that's not the cheapest one. That's actually the most expensive one, and that's just they're gonna charge you an arm and a leg. And I said, don't worry about it. The Lord will take care of it. Okay. And I said, the Lord will take care of it. And we get there. Everything was a smooth process from there. We were able to get in contact with our insurance. The doctor started running all the scans and everything. Lo and behold, my daughter had a fractured skull from the top of the crown of her head, all the way to the back of her ear. She had internal bleeding, and there was a little bit of swelling, but praise the Lord that it didn't end her life. We didn't find out. That happened on Sunday. We didn't find out until Tuesday. The doctor came in. He said, I just want to let you guys know. He says how serious this was. Your daughter's life could have been lost that day. And that kind of hits different. As most of you know, I grew up without my father present in my life. I have a relationship with my dad now. But it wasn't as I didn't know how to wade through being a father. And so when that hit, it's just like, wow, life is very short. Life is very sensitive. And but praise the Lord that God had things established for us here to make this process a lot smoother. Now, with that being said, my daughter is fine now. We're 4 weeks away. She had an appointment, one of her last appointments with the ear doctor. Um, and she has a little bit of blood still behind the eardrum, but that is it auto consumes itself. So it's just gonna, you know, fade away. And so they just want to make sure that she didn't lose any decibels in her hearing, but everything else is fine. She went through a couple CAT scans, and the Lord definitely protect her. But my daughter took it in a very good spirit. She called it, It was her getting away time, right? She was able to have her own bedroom, and where Naya wasn't going to bother her. She had her own 55-inch TV and room service. And we had a very, very comfortable experience because um, the Lord brought us with partners that recommended certain things for us because out of the experience that they have had. And we have had global insurance, global health insurance. And that's what I want to touch on. And that's what we want to touch on today on understanding the importance of having insurance out of country. If you do a short term, long term missions trip, or just being a missionary, it is very necessary in order to do that. BIMI is very wise on that end. They've gone through several deaths, they've gone through several medical emergencies, and they have recommended that every missionary, not recommended, it's not recommended, it's a policy that you have to have their medical insurance when you leave the country. And there's a reason for that. And that reason for that is what I went through with my family on having things taken care of. Um, it was a little bit of a bumpy situation, but it works, and we were covered. And praise the Lord that we had top notch care, and my daughter's life was not lost because we had basically the best care possible. But it's because of the resources that were provided through our missions agency. Um, Now, with that being said, I know it's different in the States. Um, in Mexico particularly, like I said, there's social, and then there's like an open open. There's the social medical division, and then you have like an open division of
network or something.
network, yeah, and then you have the private. Okay, we were able to be in the private, which gives you access to the highest doctors, the most studied doctors, the best specialists in the city. Where if I were to be in the social, it's okay, but it's not going to be the best care because you become a number. You don't become a person because you're not paying. And so I want everybody to understand that it's not to live high on the hog. If I would probably still be waiting, and I know this is an exaggeration, but I still probably would be waiting for care for my daughter if that was the case. Okay. If we were to gone through the social end. And then you have the open that is just anybody can come in, and then they just really don't care because as long as you can pay a certain amount, they're going to give you whatever care they want, but they only are there for your money. And private is now more of you have access to the elite, but just going to cost you an arm and a leg. Here, that is not the same amount. That's not the same pricing as in the States. This is only a fraction of the cost of what it would be in the States. So BIMI has what their global insurance is Cigna, and it's 100% coverage outside of the United States. Inside the United States, it's 70-30. So that is how the nuts and bolts of on how that works. Now, Bobby's going to open it up a little bit for you guys on what a missionary would look at when he's looking at his different fields, maybe some questions, maybe probably some walkthroughs on how his dad has presented other missionaries on how to develop ideas and resources when they come to a field. I just wanted to kind of get that off of my chest because I think that it's very wise in order to be prepared. Okay. And we say this time and time again, almost every podcast, being prepared is necessary. It's not a waste of time. It is sharpening your axe in order to knock down trees. It's necessary. So um, we have lived through it. Bobby's going through some stuff right now where even in the States, a little bit different than what we're going through right now, but it's still kind of the same things. It looks like a nuisance, but it's still helpful. I mean, it's necessary inside of ministry. I urge anybody that is a missionary that is going to the field or that is on the field, don't be without health insurance. Okay. You become a number, especially if you're in a socialist country.
Yeah.
You become a number. I can get to perks and things like that later on our insurance, but Bob, I want to open it up and give it back to you, just on touching on probably some of the nuts and bolts on what to look for, what to do. But the Lord took care of us in this, man,
Mhm.
and I'm so grateful. But it's not by accident.
Mhm.
This happened on purpose,
Mhm.
and the Lord opened up doors, and God used people in order for us to be taken care of. Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
so I want to make that a point, Bob.
Well, even on a personal note, I mean, first, like the overarching biblical principle, like preparation is key. Preparation is key to everything. Christ prepared the disciples for their ministry after his death. Paul was the most learned man of his time. You could argue one of the most learned men of his time, and Christ still took him aside after his conversion for 3 years and trained him. So, like preparation, just read the book of Proverbs, okay?
Yeah.
And how it talks about what a wise man does as opposed to a foolish or a simple man. So preparation's important. And my family has certainly seen that too, both my immediate family and then when I was with my folks. So I had a what was called thoracic outlook syndrome, and there's a bundle of a nerve, an artery, and a vein that come out of your neck into your shoulder on both sides. And in thoracic outlook syndrome, a muscle inside the shoulder gets too built up and it compresses that bundle against the first rib. So kind of like pinching off a hose. So my problem was I was a little too jacked. That was my,
There
no,
you go.
that's
There
not
you
my
go.
problem. I was like a $145 sopping wet. That was not the issue. But it compressed. You have the artery, a nerve, and a vein, and in my case, it compressed the vein. So the subclavian here, and so a blood clot formed here and backed up 5 inches into my jugular. And when that happened, I was actually playing basketball, and I collapsed. And long story short, I like God works in everyone's life, and so it's like I don't know. I don't always get into the story, but I up until that point I wasn't really living for God, and I wasn't desiring to do what He wanted me to do, and because He had not afforded the opportunities to me that I felt that I deserved, then I was like, no, I'm not going to listen to Him because He doesn't care about me, so I don't care about Him.
Mhm.
So God had no, I mean, humanly speaking, God had no reason to save me. But
Yeah.
what should have happened is the blood was rushing to my head. The capillaries inside of my head should have burst. I should have bled out internally on the spot there. And instead, God preserved me, brought me back to the States, helped me survive 33 hours in a Paris airport. So if you sense from me a particular animosity for the French, it's not only because of how they've destroyed my country, but also what they've done to me personally. Hey, we had a sonogram because it was done in the Ivory Coast. We had a sonogram in French with the blood clot circled and an arrow pointing to it, and like a description in French. And the Air France officials would do nothing, nothing. They did not care. But that's neither here nor there. So like we went through that, but we
That
had
that's the social system again,
yeah.
right?
Mhm.
Okay, that's what I'm getting to, is that the social
Well,
system is only just gonna say, "Oh, he's just a number, put him down on the conveyor belt." When we get to him, we get to him,
Well,
right?
that was the flight. It was someone who was with Air France Airways, but you are correct in that country is a socialist nation, and that mentality. The word bureaucracy we actually cannibalized from the French language. Okay, comes from French. To rule from behind a desk is what the word means, and so that's what it is. Like you are just a number in a socialist country. You are a number. You have no value unless you bring value to the community, so the community can do whatever you see fit with you. That's the Marxist worldview. I could take that for
That's
5 hours.
podcast.
Yeah, that's it. That might be its own like podcast channel, just dedicated just to that. I talk a lot about that. So the Lord blessed, and I got back to the States. I had a bunch of different surgeries, and then I did have a hip reconstruction as well, but that was caught and determined in the States. We're talking about medical overseas. There is the same thing in the Ivory Coast, where you have like the public hospital and then you have private hospitals. The public hospitals are known even amongst the people to be an extension of the morgue. The doctors have God complexes. They know that they hold all the power in those circumstances. When they try to diagnose a problem, they don't even tell the patient what they think the problem is. They just say, okay, take this.
Yeah,
That's it.
I see that here.
It's it. And you just leave. Why? Because he has that God complex. And not every single doctor, but that is by far the majority of the circumstances. So um, we ended up going to private. And so Morgan, our third, not my third, but like my sister, my parents' third, was born on the field. And it just so happened I say just so happened, God providentially worked to where the pediatrician that was present after she was born was a Lebanese doctor who had done 6 months of intensive training with Down syndrome or chromosomal disorders.
Wow.
And he actually was so proficient as a doctor that they would have gone to him even if he had been in the States. I mean, he was,
Really?
oh yeah, he
Wow.
was top notch. Muslim man, I believe he made a confession. He was a devoted Muslim man, and I believe he made a profession. I don't really know where that ended up, but he's a dear man to us. But anyways, they had done the research. Like I can't imagine like being a parent, having a child and seeing my child come out and then know something's wrong. Like she was really blue. She had Down syndrome. She didn't look right. She looked, or I mean, she looks, you get my point. She looked
Yeah.
different. There was something clearly outside of the norm. So the circumstances that we went through overseas, and then even like personally, just to underscore, because really the main crux of what happened to you recently is the importance of the medical importance, like understanding what could happen and what to do in those circumstances. Michaela's liver quit working correctly 8 months into pregnancy, and we went in on. She just started itching on her hands and feet. We're like, okay, it didn't seem like an emergency type of symptom. We got her into the doctor, and they did some emergency blood work, and they're like, okay, we're inducing you on Tuesday. Just that fast. And so she was induced a tick before 36 weeks. And that was really difficult. There was a time during the delivery where they're like, okay, his heart rate's decreasing. And I remember that moment, like, and it's not going to compare, like, all as a father, I can just relate to that moment in his life. I can't relate to like having like an older child fall, but just that feeling, like it's indescribable. Like you see your kid and you're like, something is wrong. Something is not okay. And your world stops. So now that we understand the importance of it, like, what do you do when you first get to the mission field? Well, God really blessed and provided that police officer for you. In an ideal circumstance, you know exactly where you have everything mapped out. You've got the hospital mapped out. You've got the doctor mapped out. A lot of people don't think about this in America. If you were to walk into a hospital and say, "Hey, I just wanted to say hi and introduce myself," they're gonna think, "Okay, weirdo, why don't you come back when you're sick?" Like, nobody's going to do that in the States. But sometimes cultures are different. I don't know how it is in Mexico, but if you take the time to go in and say hi to someone, apart from asking something from them, you've established a relationship that will forever change how they treat you moving forward. So you go, like, for instance, that's the case in the Ivory Coast. So you would go in and you would meet the secretary and say, "Hey, I'm new to the area. I think in the future, if we have a sickness, we're going to come visit here." You just talk with her. If the doctor's available, you try to get in just to talk with him for a few minutes. In communal cultures, that goes over very well. So number one, you plan beforehand where I'm going to go, so that when tragedy strikes, you're not caught off guard. And number two, you meet the people, you develop a relationship with them, because like it or lump it, in the vast majority of countries around the world, it is a relational mindset. So it's not as much about your insurance. It's not insurance matters, and we're going to get to that. But I'm just saying, on the relational level, it's not about like, um, it, you know, what company you have or what your deductible is or what. For them, what they care about is you as a person. You treated them as a person, so they're going to go above and beyond for you. So you do those two things, and then three, what you said before, have insurance. It is between the blood clot in my jugular and my hip, there's been like probably close to $1 million worth of surgery on me. My family would never have been able to pay that ever.
Mm-hmm.
It was really insurance that did that. It is a way of providing a buttress
Man,
against.
you're expensive. Has anybody told you that?
Yeah. Well, my wife is like, this $1 million man, and what has he got for me? So the funny part is, it's all on my right side too. It was my right jugular, my right.
Because you're always right. That's what it is.
So yeah. Anyways, you have to figure these things out beforehand. And by the way, that advice is good even for the States. If you move somewhere new, just map out where you're going to go and how you're going to get there. Set up, obviously here we have our primary care physicians, and even in the States, it's not easy. I was just on the phone for an hour and 10 minutes trying to get my insurance to approve a specialist for my son. He's had a few things come up, and we're trying to make sure that he's okay. And just to get him in was an hour and 10 minutes. Like, it certainly is. It certainly is a broken system. There's no question about that. But for those who are trying to turn, our healthcare system into a socialist healthcare system. There's a reason why people from Mexico come up and people from Canada come down.
Yep.
Like there's a reason for that. I've seen the system in the Ivory Coast. I'm very well familiar with the system in France. It's worse. It's worse. So before you tear down what we have, make sure you're actually replacing it with something that's better, because that doesn't exist anywhere. But the most important thing, just to emphasize the ABC steps for a new missionary, you need to have that insurance. If you go with BIMI, they require it. There's a reason why they do that. BIMI does not, like, as a mission, they do not do anything by haphazard or just because. If they say that they want their missionaries or they want us to have insurance, the reason for that is because they have determined it is crucial for the well-being of the missionary on the field. Everything happens. If you guys did not have that insurance, you'd be on the hook for so much
Yeah.
more.
Well, I'm going to say this way, that when we walked into to the hospital and we kind of told them how our insurance works, and I told the receptionist what insurance we had. She didn't know it. Her personally didn't. She personally didn't understand how our insurance worked, and she goes, "Well, we asked for a $500,000 peso deposit, which is that's $25,000," and they're like, "We asked for that in cash," and I said, "Well, yeah, I don't have that," and, and she goes, "Okay, well, yeah, well, we just need then to contact your insurance," and I said, "Well, I already told them that we're here." I said, "Well, I'll get you in contact with them." And I let Cigna know that we were at the hospital. They asked us where it was. They asked us for the address. They found it in their system. Praise the Lord, they were in network. Which it doesn't matter if they're in network or out of network. Cigna still covers. But they said, okay, yeah, we already have an agreement with them. They said we're going to send you what's called a guarantee of payment. A guarantee of payment is literally just a piece of paper saying whatever the bill is, we're paying it. And it took us a little bit. There was a lot of miscommunication between the hospital and the insurance, which then it became now the hospital telling me what I had to tell the insurance and the insurance telling me. And then the only way that I could contact the insurance was to call them. So there was a little bit of an issue, but it worked out. Like you said, it is a broken system, but it still worked. And literally a piece of paper, and then my daughter had the best care possible here in I wouldn't just say Monterey, but in Mexico, period. My aunt works for the Cleveland Clinic, and she's the secretary to the chairman, and she's told me several times that doctors from the Cleveland Clinic, when there's new research coming out, they come down to this particular hospital in Monterey, and they train there, and they train at another, which is a more of a public, how do I say, a public hospital, which some of those doctors are the same, some of the same specialists, but just different rates, I would say, and different cleanliness and different treatment. But
machinery, medicine,
exactly. But they're sometimes, most of the time, it's the same doctors. But the Cleveland Clinic comes down, they train these doctors. So to me, I knew exactly the hospital I wanted to go to. Going back to your point, I knew, and if something were to happen to me, I know the doctors that I have already asked my family to have their presence. I have a doctor that's going to overlook everything that the other doctors are going to do, and then since he's a doctor, he's a friend of the family. He knows the specialists that he's going to contact in order to have. So he's basically just going to take the role of supervisor. Yeah. So, but yeah, going back, I mean, it was a little bit rough on the paperwork side, but it works. So
got done.
It got done. And so praise the Lord that worked. I have no clue where that was going, bro.
Just to talk about like the importance of it, all that you really need is, there are different numbers in the States,
that's what it was. Yeah.
The numbers are all different. Here's one. Let's just say that health insurance is $1,000 a month. Depending on your circumstance, it can be different. It's extraordinary, but let's just say it is. So one event was, they wanted a payment of over 2 years worth of monthly premiums.
Oh yeah.
So let that sink in. Right. The people who's like, I don't want to commit so much of my resources to health insurance. If you don't have the right type of health insurance and you get into that circumstance, you are committing years of income to it. It's going to take you 20, 30 years to pay this off. And that's assuming that the hospital or the debt collector, whoever it is gracious and sets up a payment plan with you. What I've heard of recently is a lot of times even these collection divisions, they are no longer accepting payment plans. It just depends, right? So a lot of times hospitals will, but hospitals don't always keep all of their balances. Sometimes they sell it to debt companies.
Yeah, they sell them off.
And the strictures and the parameters for those debt companies are very different. So for people who are like, that's just too much money to commit. If you had not had that, like essentially with one thing happens, if she has to go see a doctor for the next if any of you have to have anything done over the next 2 years, you've already received and benefit more than what you would pay in during that time.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's important, it's necessary, and there are this is probably the best way of putting it. There are so many traumas, so many tragedies, so many difficulties that can bring a missionary off the field.
Mm-hmm.
Don't compound it with negligence.
Yeah.
Make sure that you're covered. Make sure you know, like what you said, you know where you wanted to go. Make sure you know where to go. Make sure, I think we were talking about before, but you had a plan and you had a contingency plan and you had like all these things in place, and it's by the grace of God that you did, because you had an injury that was time sensitive. She needed to get in then. You don't
Yeah.
sit on that for 2 days. So being prepared is important. Having a good understanding of what's coming in the future, like what you would do for whatever comes in the future, is important. So just keep that in mind. Like as a missionary, there's so much tragedy and trauma that can happen to you. Don't add one because of negligence. Like, have the coverage, know where you're going to go, follow through the steps.
Okay. I agree 100% on that end, because it's malpreparation at the end of the day if you don't.
Mhm.
That's literally what it is, because the resources are there. Missionaries like, well, then that means that I need to raise another whatever. You use the example of $1,000. I need to raise another $1,000. Yes, you do, because if not, you're going to be calling your churches, hey, I need $25,000 before they're even going to look at my daughter.
Mhm.
And so that's it's malpreparation at that point. Now, there's certain things that we have in our benefits, um, as with the insurance that we have, and I've seen this with BIMI, particularly because I've known of other missions agencies, and everybody has the way they do things different, right? um some missionaries want to go out and they say, hey, I'm just going to use um the social medical that they have there. I went out there and I got sick, and they I went to go pay a doctor, paid him $4, and he looked over me, gave me some medicine. I went and spent the $2 on the pills, and I felt better. Yeah, but wait until you need open heart surgery. One of the guys that we dearly love, you and I, Dan DeLong, he was the director for the candidates at BIMI. He
Mhm.
was out, I think it was Australia or Papua New Guinea, I can't remember. He was a missionary out there for several years, and he needed open heart surgery. They rushed him to the hospital, middle of nowhere. They He was able to get, I think, transferred to a better hospital, something along those lines. Lo and behold, his whole open heart surgery was $40,000
Mhm.
full. All right, paid in full, 100% by Cigna. But if he were to have that same thing done in the States, it would have been like 300,000 or something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And so he called me while we were at the hospital. He wanted to check up on me and stuff, check up on Aaliyah and just see how everything worked out. He talked wonders about Cigna. He says, yeah, sometimes it is a pain in order to work through them, but they cover it. They get the job done.
Yeah.
And, praise the Lord that worked out fine. But I want to make this a point, and I want you guys to understand this. Um, I told Bobby I wasn't going to say this, but I'm going to say it now. It is foolish if you don't have
Mhm.
some type of coverage that can get you into a better, if not a private a hospital with specialists, if you have the access to do that. And you're like, well, it's because it's going to add on another, 4 or 5 months for me to, raise my support, and I need to be on the field. Take the extra 4 or 5 months and do that. I'm pretty sure your pastors that support you would say, hey, that's good. That's good planning there, brother. Because if you call in the middle of the night, hey, I need $20,000 in order, my daughter just fell, or, my kid just got ran over and we need to do this. I don't have access. We need to fly back to the States, whatever. There's preparation. So time out. Let's look at this. Right.
Not to be like morbid or anything, but if you had to wait for churches to wire you money, God might have taken Aaliyah home.
Yeah.
That might have been
Yeah.
too much. Like there would have been no intervention. That's not even an option, depending on the injury, depending on the tragedy.
Yeah. And so I say this very lovingly. I'm grateful for BIMI, and I'm grateful that BIMI doesn't give the option to not have that,
Mhm.
because BIMI has been through those phone calls in the middle of the night. Hey, there was a missionary, I think it was down in Peru, or Mexico, that he went outside into his shed or something like that in the middle of the night, and had the flashlight, walked in. I don't know if you heard the story way back in the day. He went and looking at something inside of a shed. Well, lo and behold, a gas tank was open, and the whole entire shed was full of gas. So when he went in with his flashlight, just the flicker from the flashlight exploded that shed. He had third-degree burns. He ended up being flown back to the States, uh, but he ended up passing away. But I remember that story. I didn't realize he was BIMI, but I think it was DeLong that told me that he was a BIMI missionary. But either way, our insurance also includes emergency evac.
Mhm.
Emergency evac, and I'm pretty sure that's either with war, medical, and there was another one. There was another procedure, or death. I think that's those three.
Mm.
That, in the $1,000 that we're just, hypothetically using here, I can get evacuated if needed, and I don't have to worry about waiting on, a little, aviation pilot to find me in the middle of the jungle and get me there. I make a phone call to BIMI or Cigna, and they send a helicopter out to me. And I'm pretty sure it's anywhere in the world that's, needs to do it. And it's
Yeah,
great.
it is. Instead
There
of
was a story.
waiting on like some amateur pilot to get the funds from GoFundMe or something.
Exactly. And so I'm trying to make this a point here, because this is very much necessary. I'm not going to get into all the details, but there was a missionary that lost his life, and they weren't able to evacuate his body. And his family was still in an area of conflict. He got shot, and they weren't able to move him out. And it wasn't until certain resources were met in order for him to be able to get in touch with the consulate. They went into an area of conflict in order to remove his body. And his body was in a freezer for several days inside of the house. Okay. That's not that's not the scenario that we want to hear. We want to say this out of love, like saying, "Hey, just do the extra legwork a little bit." These are tragic stories that I don't want a missionary to go through. And if we can voice this right now and say, "Hey, just be, just wise in this area," it would leave would alleviate a little bit of heartache in the front, in the on the back end. It's, yes, it is an upfront cost, but it's worth it in the end.
And
Now,
it
yeah,
preserves you. Just to finish that though, it preserves your ability to stay on the field. Like obviously, there are many different like relationship things or sin or other things that can bring you off the field. I get all of that, but the thought is just keep it like just plan ahead, do what's necessary on deputation to take as many deterrents off the table as you can to preserve yourself on the mission field.
yeah,
That's what you should do. Like it's that simple. That's the philosophy behind it. Instead of getting so hung up on a dollar amount, like the vast majority of pastors, if you explain to them, I am doing I'm doing this so that I'm able to keep my family on the field for as long as physically possible. They're going to understand. Like,
Hmm.
and the good pastors actually expect it from you.
Yes.
I really appreciate it when pastors, beyond like, hey, how are you actually going to reach this culture? What's effective to reaching that culture? Hey, if something bad happens, where are you taking your family? I was like, oh, this is a pastor who understands. This is a pastor who's been around the block a little bit,
Yeah.
because they're asking legitimate questions. Like, for those of you who are interested in missions and want to get into missions, this is not something to shirk. Just like spend the extra 4 or 5 months on deputation if needed. God might give it to you in a month. You don't even know.
Hmm.
You
Yeah.
don't even know what God can do. Um, but prepare yourself. You should have the philosophy: I'm going to remove as many things as possible, humanly speaking, from my plate that could potentially harm my family and take them off the field, and the rest I leave in God's hands.
Yes. And I think that that point is very much is very much um, necessary to drill in because you're not having what is it called? You won't have the
Re-
extreme heartache on
regret.
the regret. There you go. The on the back end
Hmm.
waiting. I'm still missing 10,000 for the 25,000. What am I going to do? And it's almost like you don't want your faith to waver either at that. They said they were helping, and now I don't see them helping. And certain churches have emergency funds. Our mission board has emergency funds if needed, for their missionaries. I know other mission boards do the same thing, but it's almost like it this was at 9:40 in the morning on a Sunday. BIMI is not open during that time. I know people would have moved if need be, but, I'm just saying I, I'm grateful because I was able to get stuff done with what I had. I had the resource, I had the tools to get done what needed to be done, okay?
Hmm.
Um, Now we're moving into a different section here also, we're talking about medical.
Hmm.
I am very grateful for the people that prayed for my
Yes.
daughter.
Yes.
This is where I'm grateful for the partnership of
Mhm.
believers back home. I was able when everything was happening, even with Michaela, you were sending emails every day. I did videos. I sent out email letters.
Mhm.
I struggle to write and type those things like that. I would rather just put it on a video
Mhm.
um, and just kind of share my emotions through that, and also shared video of Aaliyah. And I'm very grateful for the people that stopped. We had several. I think there was like 3 or 4 church services that stopped when they received word
Yeah.
about that on the Sunday evening, and they prayed. They showed the video and they prayed for Aaliyah during the service. My church, that was the first ones to know before even my mom, before my immediate family. My pastor brought it up to the church, and they were in what we call the narthex, which is the north exit, um, in the foyer, and everybody just stopped and they prayed there and brought her to the throne of grace. And so I'm so
Okay.
grateful for that. But I'm grateful for the partners. But since medical is such um, a an issue in foreign countries, we sometimes we don't understand how good we have it in the states. We want to complain because the cheeseburger didn't have the right amount of cheese inside the hospital sometimes, or that's stale or whatever. But the medical end of that is very it's
Mhm.
very well. Like you said, there's a reason why people from Mexico are going up and people from Canada are coming down.
Mhm.
Missionaries, very wise missionaries, and even BIMI themselves have used medical as a foot in the door in order to reach people with the gospel. Your father is one of them, correct? That has able to use a ministry along those lines in order to reach people with the gospel. You want to
Mhm.
go in on that a little bit on how that's been able to be effective.
Yeah, it's incredibly effective. Like I can't remember if I've said this here yet, but like, many, at least amongst the foreigners and many of the people, like the general hospitals are sometimes just known to be an extension of the morgue.
Hmm.
It's just not good. It's not good at all, and people pass away all the time needlessly. Uh, Careless hygiene regimens, whatever it is, lack of knowledge, lack of experience, all the time. So It's not good, and the people see this. It's gotten to the point to where many hospitals, if they're going to give care, they expect everything in cash payment up front, and they know that they have you, because if you have the ability, you will mortgage whatever is necessary to bring the funds to save your life or the life of your loved one. So they know that you have you. So good quality medical care that's patient oriented and that is not contingent upon you mortgaging your entire financial future, that is a premium. And in the Ivory Coast there, dad, we're there to plant churches. And that's exactly, by the way, that's what we're called to do,
Yeah.
is to build the ecclesia. There's no
Yeah.
question about that. However, God may use other ministries to um, increase the influence of your church. And that's what happened there. There's 10 villages around Bangerville. And chiefs from those, I was in the car one time with my dad when this happened. There's an elder man who came up to my dad, and dad rolled down the window, and he got within an inch of my dad's nose, and he said, we have all that we need. We don't need your church, so don't bother coming. That's an insane thing to have happen in the Ivory Coast, where everything is so communal and so diplomatic, and people are so kind and welcoming, and they'll to overtly reject someone, like in African culture, that is as closed of a door as you can possibly imagine. Humanly speaking, nothing will happen in that village. Nothing. Well, Christine McLaughlin, who's served faithfully with my family now for 20 years out there, along with Dr. Bernard Cadgio, they partnered with Dad, and they opened up a clinic, and it was subsidized, right? So like the church there in Bangerville, and Dad was contributing to it to allow it to get up off the ground. Other individuals were contributing to it, and within 10 years of that clinic being opened up, almost every single village had hosted a Bible study. There's a church right now that's pastored by one of the recent graduates of our Bible Institute in Anna, which is a village. And I am utterly convinced that God used the medical field. Had it not been for his ministry in the medical field there, that they never, ever would have opened up. We talked about the importance of being prepared, and we talked about the critical moments that you and I have experienced as fathers. That's their experience too. The Ivorians, the Mexicans, like the Peruvians, like that's their experience. They know what it's like to feel like that extreme crisis, something bad's going to happen. There's nothing I can do. You come alongside them in that moment. Like I remember so clearly the faces of like all the nurses, like when Bobby's birth, and then he was in the NICU and he struggled for 2 weeks. That was a bit before we could take him home. And even though he was born at, he's a bit of a horse. He was born at almost full weight, full size. So for being born a month early, it's not bad, kid. But he struggled, and I remember the faces of the nurses who helped and the doctors who came in. Like to this day, I could, if I were an artist, I could sketch it. Why? Because I was at a crucial point. I know I cannot do what's necessary here, and I need help. Now, as a believer, I'm calling upon God, and I'm praying, and I'm committing it to Jehovah Rapha, and I'm trusting His sovereignty in the situation. But for that unbelieving native, they have not had to meet them in that moment. They couldn't care less about religion.
Oh, yeah.
They could not care less about culture, about what country you're from. You're there and you're helping them at their most critical point. It is so uniquely effective. And Dad said this before, as we come alongside and we, through the use of medicine, we physically heal their bodies. We are then given the door to minister to their spiritual needs. It's long. Like there's a couple different organizations that we've had. MMO is a big one, Medical Missions Outreach. They've come to the Ivory Coast. They have missions teams that they put together from all around the world. There are so many doctors and nurses and NPs who donate their time to this because it's so uniquely effective.
Mm-hmm.
It is incredibly effective. Now, Christine, who's been out there in the Ivory Coast, she actually has like an Ivory Coast version of MMO. It's called Access. And so Access is a ministry that she's put together, and twice a year she's bringing in people, doctors and professionals from the States. They go somewhere, they set up shop, and for 3 days, usually, they offer services free of charge. So all the medicine's been purchased for by Christine or churches in the States. The doctor's time is obviously free. So, and everyone who comes, at the very least, they get parasite medicine and vitamins. So everyone is getting something from this. And then obviously, if something is needed on top of that, they get it. we come in, and every single person who goes through, like, it's a lot, dude. One day I translated for 260 patients.
Whoa.
It's a lot. I,
Wow.
I got so tired of talking about bodily fluids and consistency and texture and color. It's just, but on an average day, they'll see anywhere from 500 to 1,000 people. And so if you're there for 3 days, 3,000 people. Each of those people fill out a questionnaire, and each of those people are given a one-on-one presentation of the gospel from somebody in our church. So we have an evangelist team of 15 to 20 people from the church there in Bainsterville, and they come through here, and they have triage, and then they come to the doctor, and I translate, and then they go to the waiting rooms for the pharmacy to bring them the meds. And we've designed it to where there's a bit of a lag there, and while they're waiting for their meds, someone from our church takes them aside, works through plan of salvation, gets their contact information. So even if they don't make a decision, if they don't repent from their sins and turn to Christ, the pastor where we're at has all of the contact information necessary to follow up on this person. And guess what? When he shows up on the door and he says, "I'd like to talk with you," they're going to let him in, because he's
Yeah.
associated with the people who helped them in their time of need.
Yeah.
That's how that works. So, like, the clinic in the Ivory Coast, it was there for 10 years. It was really funny that the city became convinced that dad was making bank off of this. And he tried to tell them, like, no, we're subsidizing it, because they had it to where, like, it was $2 for an adult consultation and $1 for a kid.
Wow.
So, like, I mean, they're just flooding this clinic from everywhere. And dad said, no, like, we're subsidizing it. They took over the clinic, and then 3 months later came back to dad and asked him to take over. He's like, no, he's like, you got it now, see how that works out for you. The reason for that being, he understood that if the city had, if they had demonstrated they were willing to, like, just randomly arrest control of the whole operation away from him, they would do it again in the future. So then he and Christine began working towards a hospital, and they have actually broken ground on a hospital in a village about 45 minutes away from where we're at there. And
Awesome.
it's going to have surgical capability. It's going to be the full 9 yards. For those of you who maybe are on the fence, like, I don't know if medical ministry is something I want to be involved, I am telling you, God uses the medical ministry in a way that he uses no other ministry. Um, uh, and I understand why.
Mhm.
Because
Yeah.
when I was going through my medical crises, when, Michaela's, her health was really bad for a while, Bobby's was really bad early on, all the different stuff I'm going on with my immune system now, like, you find yourself in that moment, and if someone's willing to step into the gap and to help you, and not just, like, help you in any way, but to show you the love of Christ, it changes a person. They can't deny it. It doesn't matter what the witch doctor said in the village. My kid was going to die, and the missionaries over here helped save my kid. So when they sit down and say, "Hey, let me tell you about the love that caused me to leave my country and come here. Let me tell you why I'm actually here, because I loved helping you and your kid, but that's not actually the most important thing to me. Let me tell you why I'm here. Look at what Christ has done for me." They are going to sit with rapt attention the vast majority of the time, because you were able to meet them in a particular place of need. So just an encouragement to you, like, hey, I'm not even interested in missions. I listen to it because I really like Avino, and I put up with that Bob guy, but whatever. Like, in your churches, if you have an opportunity, if a missionary says, hey, like, we're trying to set up a medical ministry, or we're bringing in a medical team, it is God. I have watched God transform whole villages, like whole ministries. Like, there is a built church building, and they're planning another church in another village nearby. If you told my dad that 20 years ago, he'd have laughed. That's not going to happen. Not here. Not unless God does something miraculous. Well, he did.
Yeah.
He just used people in the medical field over a period of time.
And Jesus healed people. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's was a big part of his ministry, and that's kind of why I feel like it's necessary for us to maybe look at medical missions as something that's a good, I would say, ministry in order to use in order to plant churches. The only one the missionary I think that's full time medical missions that we have at BIMI right now is she's a single lady. That's Sarah Goodman. I don't know if you remember Sarah.
Oh, Christine
Uh,
too.
yeah, Christine is also okay.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, I mean that's like that's it. There's women that have given their lives completely over to let me. I can't preach in a pulpit,
Hmm.
but I have learned how to uh, be in the medical field. I'm a nurse. I'm certified. I've done all my training that's needed, and I
Hmm.
still continue to study. And I'm going to go out to another country and be used of God in order to win people to the Lord, but by using the resources that I have through the medical. Um, so what we have seen also is that BIMI has opened up the ministry of, I think they go once or twice a year down to the Amazon,
Hmm.
and they have medical missions down there with Sean Lunday. He's the South American director, and they go down there and they have medical missions. And I've seen several people that have now missionaries to Brazil because of that particularly. There's um Aaron Reisinger.
I was just gonna bring him up.
Yeah, oh brother, he's gonna flip out that we're mentioning him here.
Yeah.
He's him and I and you have just bonded.
Hmm.
He's an older. He's is he a doctor? He's a nurse.
I forget what his specialty is exactly.
Yeah,
I just know that between him and Mrs. Reisinger, I mean, there's decades of medical experience, and their four kids are grown and out of the house, and they surrendered,
they
and like
surrendered.
instead of, because like you want to talk about decades in the medical ministry, he set their life up. We'll give a ton to missions, it'll be okay. And instead of living retirement out in the States, they're down in the Amazon river basin. I think they're on the Columbia side technically
Yeah,
right now, but it's unbelievable.
Mhm.
Incredible testimony.
And he's one of those guys that he such a um young man, and he's just, and mentally he's just like,
Hmm.
man, I'm doing deputation with all these young bucks, and he's just like, he's like, but yeah, he's like, the Lord, I believe the Lord can use me. And he's so youthful, and the way he approaches things, and texts me probably at least probably once a month, if not once every 2 weeks, and just wants to check up on us. And uh, contacted me when the whole thing happened with Aaliyah. He wanted to know and wanted to give me some advice of what to ask the doctors.
Yeah.
There's people that are called to medical missions
Hmm.
to help establish churches.
Yes.
Praise the Lord.
Yeah.
And if the Lord's putting on your heart and you're just like, well, I'm just, I'm a nurse, I'm a doctor, whatever. I'm very comfortable here in the States, but I feel the Lord's calling me into missions, or I can go out and help a missionary for a little bit. I'm just gonna say, jump, do it, brother. If
Yeah.
the Lord's calling you to do it, just do it. The Lord opens up the door and has changed villages because of it. Right now, I would say it's a very, very predominant way on how to spread the gospel.
Just
Um, yeah,
a shameless plug before we move on.
yep.
So Christine's ministry there in the Ivory Coast called Access.
Hmm.
The website is Access Ivory Coast. So AccessIvory.org. If you personally or someone else that you know is a medical professional who wants to give some of your vacation time and get a ticket and go out there, like there'd be other people said that's the best way to do it if you're interested in the Ivory Coast,
Yep.
which I'm partial to,
Yeah,
Um,
no, that's
so
fine.
if not there, then I would recommend Medical Missions Outreach because they go all over the world and they go to different places.
There's a Jeremiah 3:33 ministry, I think, too.
I've heard of that. Yeah.
Yeah, they also do. I think they also do medical missions. There's another brother that I ran into on deputation. I think his name is John Smith,
Okay.
Dr. John Smith. He also does just he helps particularly just with missionaries that want to do a medical clinic, a pop up medical clinic,
Hmm.
and that's all he does. He just goes and helps missionaries. That's his own ministry. He just grabs
It's
a
so
couple
effective.
nurses, and so I'm just saying, brother, if there's somebody out there, even sister, if you wanna be used of the Lord and you have a talent, or you're educated in that area, reach out and see if there's
Hmm.
a way that you can be used. If not, reach out to BIMI. BIMI will get you connected. You're not becoming a missionary through BIMI. You can go to the missions trips that they have.
Hmm.
They're called BIMI Connect trips, and you can go down to the Amazon basin. You can go down there and help with Sean Lunday. Thousands upon thousands of people that are able to be reached that way. I think those are one of the biggest ministries that I think BIMI has, where they come back with most salvations, if I can
Mhm.
remember right, through Canada school. Um, I want to go on one of those, and I want to take our church to one of those in the future. So pray about it and let the Lord see if the Lord, even if you don't have a medical degree or not studying in that, you can still pass out pills. Okay.
Mhm.
You can
Yes.
still be work in the pharmacy. You can
Mhm.
still make sandwiches for people.
Mhm.
Be used of the Lord. These are very effective ministries. Our ministry in the long run wants to do those and do pop up, but we
Mhm.
want to be the base of being able to do pop ups in
Mhm.
little ranches throughout Mexico in the future. But I just want to share that with you, and to let everybody be aware. And you know what? If you're a pastor listening, I would say talk. Get a hold of Miss Christine McLaughlin. You said Christine McLaughlin, right?
Yeah.
Or Sarah Goodman, or Brother Reisinger,
Mhm.
or Sean Lunday.
Mhm.
Get a hold of these guys that are doing this type of stuff, and try to see if you can partner with them, because this is a very effective ministry.
Mhm.
It may be a little bit temporary, but at the same time, it's very, very effective. But it costs a lot of money in order to do this stuff. Now, going back just to, as I'm trying to go back and kind of understand this, does your dad still have the clinic, or he doesn't have the clinic technically, the one that he has?
So the one that we
He has.
started, no,
Okay,
but they've broken ground on a hospital. So
on the hospital.
the
Okay,
clinic is only, it did not have surgical capability.
yeah,
It was
necessary.
just
It, it's
consultation.
it's necessary either way to be able to do that, and to have the surgical side. If not, 100% we're biased on this. Talk to Bob Mack Sr. about, hey, how am I able to be
Yes.
a part of the hospital that want to, brother, if you were on the other end, as I was on the end, as Bobby has been on the other end, as you have may been on the other end on in the States, it just adds on another level if you're in a foreign country. But if this is an outreach that's bringing people to the Lord, but also being able to help physically, I think that is a ministry worth supporting.
Mhm.
Um, I'm saying that because we're getting into us being established as a church, and our first conference is missions conference, and we're gonna trying to look at supporting missionaries that have certain outreaches like that,
Mhm.
because it's very, very effective. So
Yes.
just to wrap this up, in general, we have already looked at that looking how tragedies on a mission field can also lead to vision in establishing something. Your dad was on the other end with Morgan. Now he's been able to now be used of God in order to
Mhm.
use a vulnerable position in order to reach people with the gospel.
Mhm.
And that's as I've already said previously, I'm in a very established place in Mexico, the heart of the industry. There's very wealthy people, but one thing that I've said is that money doesn't mean anything when you're diagnosed with cancer.
Yeah.
Money doesn't mean anything when your child just committed suicide. Money doesn't mean anything when you're going to the morgue in order to identify your parent. These are vulnerable moments in ministry where the Lord can open up a door for you to reach somebody with the gospel. And that is our long term vision on what we want to do here in Mexico. That is the long term vision that the Lord has given Brother Bob Mack, and he's been able to use that. And praise the Lord that Bobby has been a product of that. The Lord has opened up my eyes in order to use this, in order to do something for Him. And I'm saying this just to wrap this and sum this all up. The Lord works through medical, okay? And God has given us resources, and we're beneficiaries of those resources sometimes, but then we can also be suppliers of those resources. So let's not be foolish on just being mal stewards on how we use those resources and those tools that the Lord has given us. Now, that is kind of the summary of this whole entire podcast.
Yeah.
It is, at the end of the day, it's still about souls.
Mhm.
I still want to go back, and I still want to talk to the police officer. The
Yeah.
Lord's put that on my heart, that opened up the way that the Lord used in order to open up the way to get my daughter to the hospital. But I have contact with the doctors. And I've explained all to all of them that God's going to work through this. And now we have developed some type of a relationship with these doctors that can goof off with them. And now it's going to be able to me open up the door in order to share the gospel with them. We have one more, was it called, appointment with each one of them, and
Mhm.
their profession is this is the church that we're trying to start, and maybe the Lord will open up the door for them to be able to attend our church. Maybe the
Yeah.
Lord will open up the door for us to see them get saved. If not, the seed has been planted.
Mhm.
So I just wanted to share that with you. It's been close to my heart. It's been close to Bobby's heart. We've both been affected by the medical end of this, and I think that it was very important for us to do a podcast on this. Just the wisdom that we have received throughout years, and just being able to share what the resources that we have, and that's the whole point of the podcast is help the next generation, brother, and even the missionaries that are out there. Look for a global health insurance that would help you guys. Okay.
Absolutely.
Anything you want to add on to that, my brother?
No, I think at this point I'd just be reiterating things that I've said before, but I think your summation is correct. Number one, be prepared yourself. Know what you're going to do, no matter where you're at, America or around the world. Number two, understand the importance of that moment, and how if you have a ministry that can meet that moment for another human being, it will be highly influential, and it'll cause them to actually listen with no walls as you present the gospel. And then those that are in the States, prayerfully consider those that are engaging in that mission, because it is highly effective. I know that we're due to have Dad on at some point for
Yeah.
our quarterly sit-in, and we can ask him then, because he's got just stories on stories on story of how God has worked time and time again. So appreciate you guys. This is hopefully insightful to you. Hopefully allows you to be able to see, pull back the curtain a little bit and see what it's like on the mission field, the different things that you have to work through. Allows you to pray more intelligently and more effectively, and then knowing how to engage in the ministry. So
All right. All right. We're going to wrap this up. Bobby, you want to sign us off? Thank you
I
guys
will
for listening.
absolutely appreciate having you guys. It was wonderful having this podcast with you today. Next time, grab yourself a cup of coffee, pull up a chair, and join us.
Thank you, guys.